Okay, aloha kako, and hope you and your ohana are all well. And so for any newcomers, I'm Mike Gabbard. I served in the city council for 2 years, starting in 2002, and started serving in the Senate in 2006. So mahalo to everyone for here in person and in Zoom land for coming. So this is actually our second in-person Listen Story community meeting since COVID. That was March of 2020. So it's another great day in duty. And speaking of SPVs, that's my wife Carol of 53 years, and at our home in Kalailoa, where we've lived since 2004. Yeah. So for future reference, we start these meetings promptly at 9 o'clock. I was an Air Force brat, and so I learned very quickly that you stay on time. We started a few minutes late today. Sorry for you Zoomers out there. And we started actually having guest speakers in August. And so according to the feedback we've gotten from constituents, this has been working out very well. They're very appreciative. So today, for the first half hour, we're going to have Corporal Roland Pagan from HPD, and he's going to provide us with an update on the current staffing shortage at HPD District 8, and also discuss how folks can get involved in a neighborhood watch. And then following Corporal Pagan's presentation, I'll give some community updates, and then there'll be time for Q&A. And if we run out of time and you don't get a chance to speak, then you can just send me the email with your questions and we'll follow up. So, brief introduction for Corporal Pagan. He was born and raised in Kaneohe. He graduated from Damien Memorial High School a long time ago. We couldn't get a year out of him. Couldn't get that year. He's been a police officer for 23 years. Thank you for your service, Corporal. He's worked in District 8 for 23 years, 13 years as a patrol officer, 10 as a community policing officer, and he's lived in the district since becoming a police officer. So I'll turn it over to Corporal Pagan.
Ready? Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Roland Pagan, District 8 Court Community Policing Officer. Senator set up in the district for about 23 years, working community policing for almost 10 years now.
And I'm sorry I said Pagan, it's Pagan.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to get that straight.
It depends who you're talking to.
Okay, right, exactly.
Okay. Right. So if you can see this, I try to talk a couple of things about the district itself. District 8 does cover from the Eva off all the way to the end of Kaina Point. Our district encompasses Kapolei, Eva Beach, Makakilo, Nanakuli, Maili, and Waianae. It is about 114 square miles. Last time we checked, our census was looking at about 85,000 residents. However, with the continuing growth of Kapolei and Eva, those numbers are ever increasing. Up until about 7 months ago, the district was broken up into 3 sectors. We were able to actually add a 4th sector with the addition of Ho'opili in our community, as well as taking over Kalailoa and the district there. So we broke it down to 4 sectors now. So if you're not aware, what happens is within the district, within the island is broken down by districts. Within the district, it's broken down by sectors, so the officers can respond to certain areas with their beat partners in a more efficient manner. The Kapolei, Kalailoa area does come under Sector 3 now. Throughout the day, within the district, we have approximately 21 beats, which means on a good day, we have, 23 beats. So on a good day, we have 100% staffing, 23 officers working. We don't have very many good days. So we don't always get, or very seldom do we get actually 23 officers working within the district. So we do have areas and within the district that we are running short on officers on the beats and stuff like that. We believe that our officers do a very good job taking care of and covering off themselves and each other to make sure everybody's safe. We get to our cases on time. And the department has, in the last few years, has reinstated our alternate call service, which basically means if you want to make a police report for something that does not necessarily need an officer to show up at your house, they can actually take your report over the phone, such as if you lose your wallet, you just wanted to report something for insurance purposes, certain types of cases. So when you call 911, the dispatcher will actually offer that service to you if there's no need for an officer to come to your house. You do have the option to ask for an officer to show up at your house if you do request. So, okay. Sorry. Okay, so we did do a comparison of our district calls for service over 2020 and 2021. So according to the slide, if you look at the slide, in 2020, we had a total of 314,095 calls for service island-wide. In 2021, it dropped significantly to 800,448 calls for service. On the bottom, we broke it down from January to July of this year. Again, we are District 8. So if you look at the numbers on the bottom, the only district that actually has more calls for service during that time period is District 1. District 1 is actually the downtown area. So we believe that we've actually been a lot busier than them, only because District 1, their cases there would actually include if someone calls from District 8 or in Eva Beach or Waianae, Kapolei, and they call the ACS where they get their report done over the phone, it actually goes under a D1 call, as well as anybody that walks in for any types of calls at the main station. When the detectives create cases and stuff like that, it does come under that. So if you were actually to look at the calls for service in District 8, the 66,123 calls for service are calls that our officers actually have to respond to throughout the district. So we do believe that we are the busiest district on the island. With the geographical challenges that we have, it does make it a little bit more difficult because of how spread out the district is, as well as the one way in, one way out in the Waianae area and stuff like that. So, right. Again, just touching on the alternate call service. This does allow the community to initiate police reports over the phone. Again, this is just something that allows you to make your report without having to wait for a police officer. You can make your report right away. And again, these are things that does not require an officer to come to you. Just a short personal story. This is actually how I met my wife. She was living in Kapolei. Somebody broke into her car. She made a police report over the radio, over the phone. But at that time, they requested that somebody dust the vehicle for fingerprints. And then I was sent to her home to actually dust the vehicle. So if there is a way for the officers to make a case over the phone, they will. If an officer does need to show up for certain things, they can still do that. So.
And was it love at first sight?
On her part, I believe. On her part. That's what I tell everyone in here.
Love at first sight.
I
like that.
You know, one of the things that we did talk about, and it is in the news quite a bit, is the manpower shortage within HPD. The department for a while has actually looked at ways to curb the way or the amount of calls that the officers need to go to. Personally, my feeling is that, since I've gotten in the department, we were about 200 or so officers short. We're able to do the job with those officers, without those officers, only because we try to give the calls for service that do not necessarily go to the police department or require the police department. We try to forward that to the appropriate agency. With that, the city has come up with the Honolulu 311 app. This is a great thing. So you can actually report things on the 311 app to the city. These are things that are non-emergency. So please don't call them if you need an officer right away, because it's basically an email form, a text form, and it comes to either the community policing team or to the district command. And it goes out for attention a little bit later. So these are things such as parking complaints, abandoned vehicle complaints. If you feel there's an issue with your neighbor, something's going on that doesn't need an immediate response, you can actually use the 311 app. It just offers our citizens an opportunity to report things without actually, again, waiting for an officer or having to meet with an officer if the call does not need to be that way. The only thing that we do ask is people to understand that when you use the 311 app, an officer is not dispatched right away. It's a system that goes through to the city. The city does look at it, and then they route those calls or those messages to the appropriate department, whether it's the police department, whether it's Department of Parks and Recreation, facility maintenance, whoever actually would be taking care of those calls. 95-98% of the time, those calls do come to the HPD as well. And then we try to see what we can do to help out to accommodate the call until the appropriate agency can actually go out and take care of completing the request for service.
What's the response time?
We tell people to give it at least 3 to 5 days. Again, that depends on what the call is, what it takes to get the call done. And then a lot of times if it goes to one agency, like say if somebody calls and says there's illegal dumping on the side of the road, that may come to the Honolulu Police Department. However, what we do is we'll forward over to Department of Facility Maintenance to let them know that they need to go out there. So the call may have been addressed initially within those 3 days, but getting someone out there to pick up that trash or remove the debris and stuff like that would really depend on that other department's schedule. So it really depends on the type of call. Yeah, on the outer islands, it's legal to have fireworks to some degree on the outer island. So which means they still come into Hawaii, they still come into Honolulu before leaving. And, we believe that, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but we believe that, a couple of containers are being forgotten at the docks, and then they just get transported to someone else and stuff like that. And with Hawaii being an island state, to actually get enough people or enough dogs or enough equipment to actually scan every single container that comes into Hawaii, I think our economy would go crazy because, now you don't get your toilet paper because now these guys got to scan every single trailer before they release them. So it's a big challenge, but I think, maybe we believe, there's nothing to prove it, but, we believe that if it was banned throughout Hawaii, you'd have less opportunity to bring it in.
I didn't realize it was relevance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions now? Okay, Rich.
I know you mentioned it in the beginning, right, washer, but can you just mention that again? What are we running at currently? And if you think, it's that staffing shortage, if it's on the department, solely address, or is something that legislature?
So again, we have 33 beats in our district. Ideally, we'd like to have every single beat staff. Some people are talking about a District 9, adding a whole nother district, which would actually cover from Kahi Point to the end of Kaena Point, making a District 9 in that area. With that, you would still need a lot more manpower because you can't just take what we have and give it out there. You'd have the same issues. Again, so ideally, we'd like to have 100% staffing. The department right now, I believe, is the minimum of 78% staffing. So if you're running with 78%, you're good to go. If you go below that, we're allowed to bring in people to cover on overtime and stuff like that. Again, when COVID hit, money went all over the place, made it a challenge. I know the city council at this point is actually pushing to get some of the money from the traffic violations and stuff like that. Since I got in the department, people have always said, when you give somebody a ticket, when you give somebody a ticket, their complaint has always been, oh, you guys just doing it because you guys like the money. Well, again, the city and county of Honolulu doesn't get the money from traffic violations. Again, I don't want to get too political, but that's something that they're talking about because they're feeling that if we do that, if the city gets, maybe half of the money or whatever, it can go to law enforcement, whether it's the the police department, the prosecutors, the judges and stuff like that. Money's a big thing, but it's also getting people to want to be police officers. We don't want to lower the standard for who we bring into the department. Our human resources division has actually gone to a point where they're trying to streamline the process to get everything done a lot faster so we can get more classes going. So as of right now, I believe they have increased the number of classes, academy classes throughout the year, but the classes are a little bit smaller. So the hope is that we'll have less attrition that way. Because what happens is when I got in the academy, my class started at 62 people. We graduated with, I believe, 51. So you get other classes that start with 25 and then you graduate 10 or 15. So what they're trying to do is downsize the amount of the amount of personnel in the class, which will then allow for a little bit more one-on-one attention to get them to the point where they can actually pass without lowering the standards and stuff like that. But then again, just the sentiment across the country for a while regarding how people felt towards police officers really pushed a lot of people away from being a law enforcement officer. Hawaii, the Honolulu Police Department has the honor of saying that we are one of the best police academies in the country. But with that comes a lot of people willing to come and try to take your officers. So we get a lot of police departments from the mainland actually come down here and they actually hold open interviews to persuade people to go up there. And the thing is, with the cost of living in Hawaii, you might make a little bit more here than another county in the mainland, but the cost of living goes down, so it actually increases your pay in that sense. We do get a lot of military that come into the police academy, but then again, a lot of them being from all over the place, being in the military. Again, they're a little bit quicker to leave if the opportunity comes up. So the Human Resources Division actually looked into the transfer opportunities for people, because a lot of people from Hawaii, that officers that are getting transferred from Hawaii, Honolulu to the mainland, they're actually able to go in there, they can get back to work sooner because the training that we get. Whereas when we bring someone from the mainland, because of our laws and because of the training we want them to be held to, they go from the beginning of the academy. I don't know if you remember Chief Moose. He was involved in the Detroit shooting. He was the chief of the police in Detroit when they had that shooting. He retired from his department. He came to Honolulu and he had to go through the whole academy process. So you think, oh, this guy was the chief of police. Yeah, so it's that type of thing. So there's a lot of things. I know Chief Logan is looking at opportunities, being a military person. They're looking at a lot of opportunities, how to keep people from retiring, how to incentivize people signing up. In the military, you get re-enlistment bonuses, but you get retention bonuses and stuff like that, depending on your job. So I know they're looking at a lot of different opportunities, trying to figure out how to do it. Again, my thing with that is that if we're able to get agencies to take care of their responsibilities and not everything land up with the police, because right now, if there's a rooster going off in your yard, the police have to go because people call the police department. Whether it's a Humane Society thing or not, the Humane Society is not just going to go. If your child doesn't go to school, people are calling the police, hey, can you get my child to school? There's a lot of things, with the schools come under the state, they're DOE, but HPD responds to the schools. The sheriffs don't respond to the schools. So those are all things that if we can get it to a point where people understand that for certain things, the police department isn't going to come, you free up those officers. The other big thing was when they were trying to pass this catch and release basic thing, the no bail and stuff like that. We're glad it didn't pass. But, when you're arresting people and they're being allowed to go right back on the street for whatever reason, whether they're using overcrowding in the jails or hey, it was a non-violent at this time kind of thing, it tends to make your police officers respond to the same people all the time. So we're catching them, putting them away, but then again, we're going back out and having to catch them again. Building, one of the things that I talked to someone about was they were talking about building another prison, another jail. But when they were talking about that, they were talking about closing the one we have. If you build one and you close one, you're not increasing anything. The idea that you could build another prison and maybe use OCCC as a mental health facility for the challenges that we have with our homeless community. those are options that we think would be better than just closing it down and turning the property over to somebody else and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that come into play. It's really hard to point one thing. I know I probably didn't answer all your questions, but hopefully it gives you an idea.
It's a lot of information. And we appreciate all that.
Yeah,
But, can I?
go ahead.
Just,
Yeah.
When we talk about cost of living, how can we help not only our law enforcement, our police officers from, like, the thing in Hawaii, I understand there's no law to limit how much your landlord can increase your rent at any given time. And like, just this past year, we get like $500 increase on our rent. With no question and no other option for us, because they're basing it on market price. So they were able to up our rent 20%. And how can we address that to the legislators or to whoever we can to do something about that, not only for, our middle income household, but, throughout the state, because cost of living is, a problem, and homelessness, and, to afford to a place to stay is just ridiculous, I have this friend who has to move out of their rental and go back with the parents with 3 kids because they couldn't afford. And she works full time and her husband worked 2 full-time jobs. And, it's just.
Well, Lily, let me answer your question. That is the fact that you're here expressing that point. That's what I'm encouraging everyone to do. And so many people, I know how busy people are, but by doing that, staff is here. We will, if you can send more details on a bill that we can introduce, that at least gets the conversation going, right? To do something about whatever the issue might be, right? So, yeah.
Because just thinking about it, you think about it, what if they did something where if you're renting a house for $1,500 a month, say the law only allows you to increase it within the year based on what the economy has increased. So if the economy goes up 1% or whatever it is, then you can only increase your rent 1%, limiting that. I mean, I think, the sad thing is, like you said, that, everybody goes with what the market price is, right? Right now, I mean, look at what just prior to COVID, when people were selling houses, you had people putting their house on the market for 400,000 and people were offering them 6 because people were getting outbid. So the prices in Hawaii does go higher, but like I said, if you did something where you can only increase your rent so much based on what the inflation rate went inside, then you'd stop people from maybe gouging people. So I mean, then that kind of adds to homelessness as well, right? I mean, people now can't get into a home because.
And homelessness is not only about the people that are out there without a home. Homelessness, when I think about homelessness, I think about those families that has to move back to their parents' house, or their parents have to, move in with their families, because they cannot afford a home, for themselves, and it's just not a healthy, not only financially, but, overall well-being for the 18,
I can relate. My parents retired to Mexico 2 years ago because they couldn't afford to retire here.
Yeah.
I mean.
And to add to that, I mean, kind of an off the subject of that is right now with the building permit process, people can't even build on their own home. I have a friend, he's a police officer, he's retired. His house burned down. There was a fire. His house burned down almost 2 years ago. So he's been renting and paying a mortgage for 2 years because they can't get the permits to rebuild his home.
my daughter, is trying to rebuild a home that he bought from the grandmother. And her application has been sitting for a year now. So she's displaced for a year now. And when, last week when I was talking to her, she said, they told me it might take another 6 months for me to hear from them. And then the other issue that that came up to my mind when you were talking about fireworks. Me personally, I don't mind, and it doesn't bother me, the tradition. You know, I was born and raised in the Philippines, and we get all these fireworks, you know, every year, every 6 months, on Independence Day, on New Year's Day, and, you know, but every single day, you know, there's not even have to have an occasion. They just feel like, oh, I'm gonna bother my neighbor. 1 o'clock in the morning, I can't sleep. I'm not gonna let my neighbor get any sleep.
Yeah.
And it's just, you know, throughout the year.
Yeah.
Somebody's birthday. And they
Yeah.
wait till 1 o'clock, and then you're falling asleep hour later, boom, you know, another, you know, so.
Yeah.
I kind of relate to her because, you know, like, coming from Mahakilo, coming from Everglades, you can hear, you know, like every single night.
And the funny thing is, you know, if you follow on things on social media, you know, when people start hearing it, the first thing everybody posts is, oh, what's going on today? Is there a fight? Is there a big game? You know, somebody is a high school playing because the fireworks are going on. Everybody's trying to figure out what's the purpose.
Kapolei high school must have won. And then, like, my neighbor's son, played for White Powell. Oh, White Powell must have won, you know. But, and
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
and then the other thing that you mentioned about, agencies doing their job and about the rooster, there was a couple incidents that, you know, we called the Humane Society for an attended dog, and they told us to call HPD.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, speaking to some of the Humane Society guys, the you know, from what I remember of the conversation is, I guess they said the city pays them as a contractor to take care of a lot of the city issues. The problem is, according to them, was that they haven't been getting paid, so they're trying to, you know, that's their story. But the thing is with that is, you know, again, you know, as an officer, there's no part in the 6.5-month training do we go through how to catch a vicious dog. You know, we're not given equipment to catch a vicious dog, but the Humane Society won't come until the dog is caught, tied up, and left. And then they'll come and get the dog. So we need to do that. We need to figure out how to do that, or corner the dog somewhere so that the Humane Society can come and get them. Yeah.
So, Senator, is that something that we need to bring up to the city? Council or?
Like I said, we got it noted down, whether it's county or state, and we can just look at our councilwoman. I wanted to also talk about what Reggie brought up in terms of going back to funding. And yes, I saw in the news that the city council has introduced a bill now that would 50% of any traffic violation citations, tickets would go to the city and county, 50% would go to the state. As Corporal mentioned, 100% now is going to the state. There was actually a bill that I supported a few years ago. It's actually come up a couple of times. Where why does the state, you know, county needs to, they got to pay their police officers a living wage, right? They've got all kinds of, why is this going into the, and it didn't pass, obviously. So, and serving on the city council for 2 years, I must say that that's where my heart is in terms of having been through these experiences, countless numbers of hearings, dealing with funding issues. It just made sense. But my colleagues at the time did not agree. I will state right here now publicly, and I'm not doing this because I want to get reelected. If I get reelected, I will reintroduce that bill so that we can, you know, why, and I know what the council's doing, they're starting with 50%, maybe 75%, maybe we can, whatever the compromise is. This really needs to happen. It really needs to happen.
Yeah, and I know the argument that has always been from, like I said, when I got into the department was that they were always concerned with people saying that, oh, the policemen are doing it because they want more money.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like you said, if you look at what the city council is talking about, how, the city pays for the roads, the city pays for the courts, the city pays for the policemen, all this kind of stuff. So all this money that's being generated on those roadways, why wouldn't they go to the city? Again, that's a political thing. I don't like to talk about those things when we do this, but, on the police officer side was always that accusation that, oh, you guys need to do it because there's a quota, you guys need to go pay some bills kind of thing. And I always tell people when they ask if we have a quota, I said, no, I get to give as many tickets as I want. So either that or I tell them, yeah, 2 more and I get a toaster. So.
For me, it's nothing political. It sounds like you guys are doing for somebody's paycheck.
Yeah.
It's just as simple as that, like you're doing this service and job or task for somebody else, somebody else is getting the money and.
Well, that's a lot of sentiment too with a lot of these outreach, like homeless outreach and stuff like there's so many nonprofits that do that. And the question is always that, these people get all this money, but what are they really doing? If homelessness is as bad as it is, what are these people doing, right? So I guess the biggest thing is, whoever's giving them the money needs to make sure that they're doing the job. So if an agency is giving money to outreach agencies, what are you guys doing to make sure that they're earning that money versus giving it to someone else that is doing the job?
Okay, and we have Joe online. Do you have a question? Any questions? Turn your mic.
Yeah, no, it was already Officer
can't hear you.
Corporal Pagan kind of answered already. I
Okay,
just
hang
wanted.
on, can't hear you. I can't.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me yet?
Yep.
Got me? Okay, Corporal Pagan mentioned earlier about District 9, and I was just, wondering if that's going to be a reality, but I presume the answer is no, until such time as the numbers can improve in HPD.
Yeah, the challenge that we have is the mic is echoing. Okay, the challenge is the fact that we do need a manpower. The money we were allocated money to build a YNI station, the brand new YNI station. Even with that, the station hasn't been completely finished with the money that was allocated. The police station still hasn't been completely finished. But then again, with the manpower shortage, it's not as simple as just cutting the district in half and sending the 12 officers that work on that side, because all you're basically doing is the same thing, but requiring more manpower because you got the command staff. One thing that we've talked about before was getting the city council to provide more money for funded beats within the district, so we can actually cut the district up a little bit more that way. So, for example, the officer that works beat 879 actually covers all of Ho'opili, but they also cover half of Eva Beach by the hospital area. So that officer needs to cover that whole area versus adding another beat where you have just one officer in Ho'opili. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think Ho'opili is building like another 10,000 homes or something. So that's going to add to the population and stuff like that. So the fact that the officers that we have, the 23 beats that we have are it's not like Waikiki where one officer basically encompasses one block. The geographical restrictions that we have within a district requires that one officer actually cover a lot more space, which then becomes a challenge if you don't have somebody on that beat, because now you have somebody that has all of Eva Beach having to go into Ho'opili as well to cover that side. So
Okay,
Thank you.
you wanna,
Can I ask one more question?
okay, one more question, sure.
Everything's muted right now.
There we go. You need to have one muted.
I know, crime was one, but what is it at the top of the list that's going on now?
Actually, crime in our district is actually not district, in the island has actually gone down. We just got a report not too long ago, where the car break-ins have gone down, burglaries have gone down. So our crime is actually down. The biggest issue that we're dealing with in our community right now, and in regards to the amount of calls for service, is actually regarding homelessness issues. Where it's either people on the beaches or on private property, or trash and stuff like that. So that's one of the biggest things that we're dealing with as far as calls for service. Again, drugs has always been a problem. I'm not saying it's the biggest problem, but we tend to see that drugs leads to a lot of other things.
Is that tied to the homelessness or separate issue?
Both, because we do have the majority of our homeless that we deal with are either dealing with mental illness or drug or alcohol related issues. We have within our district, we have very, very few people that are homeless because of a housing situation. To say that the homeless people are the ones that are causing the crimes is not fair. The issues that we're having with the homeless is people saying that they want to go to the beach and they can't, or they don't feel safe because of all these tents and stuff, and even drug paraphernalia and stuff like that, needles on the beach and stuff like that. Catalytic converter thefts has always been an issue for a while, but that's,
Daughters just got
Yeah. yeah. But even that, although it's still a problem, those thefts have gone down because I believe they passed a law regarding how you can benefit from it. So, in order for these people to get money from it, it's a lot harder now. So that's actually gone down. From talking to some people, we found that some of the catalytic converter thefts are actually being committed by people that are selling them to shops that can repair catalytic converters. So that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Did we consider the death penalty for? Just curious.
That's about my favorite.
I have a question, because my daughter's catalytic converter just got stolen the other night. Yesterday morning, she told me, like, Mom, can you come back and pick me up? My car doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
And, well, what's being done about that other than what was, recently, for about, because I saw in the news about, like it's harder to sell now.
Right.
But,
Yeah, I think the biggest issue with that is by making it difficult for them to profit from it. That's where you hope to bring the drug crime down, right? That's the same thing they had for a while when people were stealing the copper. They were actually going into abandoned buildings, stealing the pipes. They were actually going and cutting wires from the traffic lights, because they wanted the copper wire. But when they made it more difficult to profit from it, those crimes actually went down.
but I was gonna talk to you about it on this side, but, what happened yesterday was my daughter's, was stolen. And then my husband was running yesterday evening. He's praying for the 26 miles. And he found a converter just laying around the park.
Mhm.
Did you hear any incidents where young people are doing this for, to show off or?
As far as we know, people are doing it because they're trying to profit from it, or there's a, because they're not going to take the chance of just doing it just because it's it's not like a graffiti crime, right? Where they're just going to spray paint a wall because they want people to know that they did it. There's actually, there's still ways for them to get things from it. And again, like I said, I've talked to one guy that told me he was actually providing it to an auto shop that was using it to repair. So that's why it's not like you're going to get, it's all Toyotas that are being stolen, or it's only Hondas that are being stolen. It's very random, and that's what we found out that some people are actually stealing them because they're actually putting them on other cars. No.
That gave me the impression that when I called, when the HPD officer called me back, and said, is it a Toyota? I was like, oh, no, I have a Toyota and it's that the next one. But my daughter's car is actually Hyundai accent and it's really low.
No,
So I was like, telling my husband, I said, what did they get to it? They sent a baby to brother. But what they're doing is they
They
actually
left
wrap
it.
it up. My
Yeah.
husband actually saw the wives, he said, oh, they wrapped it up.
and it's a quick process. Unfortunately, it's a very quick process. So.
And then-
Okay,
Sorry about that.
Corporal Pagan, I want to thank you very much for sharing your wisdom with us this morning. If there are additional questions, just make sure you can just send an email to me and then I'll pass them on to Corporal Pagan. And thank you, yeah, for your service. Really appreciate it. And so we're just about out of time here. I want to move on to let's see, you on the slides here? As most of you guys know, the legislative session starts the third Wednesday of every January and usually ends the first week of May. And so if I'm fortunate enough to get reelected on November 8th, I'm going to have 2 year-round staffers. This is Meg Turner. She is my office manager. She's been with me. She's been with me since 2014. And my new community liaison, Genevieve Pomerantz, who started in August, and also Reggie Garcia, who will be joining with us, who I just hired as a legislative aide. He won't start until January 2nd. That's just before our session starts. And so let's go on and I just finish up. Yeah. So just a reminder, in case you missed it, the Senate District 20 will officially change to Senate District 21. Every 10 years after we have our national census, the district lines get redrawn based on the shifting population. So right now, District 20 includes Kapolei, Makakilo, and portions of Kalailoa, Westlock, and a small portion of Waipahu. After the November election, the Waipahu and Westlock communities will be in Senate District 18 and 19. And the new Senate District 21 will be Kapolei, Makakilo, portions of Kalailoa, and Fernandez Village in Eva Villages. It will also include Honokai Hale out by Colina and also Campbell Industrial Park, just so you're clear on the new Senate District 21. And so also Senate District 21 will include the 41st, 42nd, 43rd, and 44th representative districts. And with that, we are out of time. And so we will get to the other issues that we did not cover in our next Listen Story meeting. So I want to thank you all for coming. And again, if you have any questions on anything having to do with the community, the neighborhood watch thing, I'm really excited about that. The one here in the Kapolei is pretty active, right?
Yes, and in fact, we just had a meeting last week with the villages of Kapolei
Right.
to get more of the communities involved and try to get them
Yeah.
to look into it.
Okay, so thank you all again very much and mahalo.
Thank you.
Have a great day.